gorgeous messages yesterday. Yeah, I was absolutely knocked. I didn't sleep well Saturday night, and I just felt really unwell all night. And then in the morning, honest to goodness, I think you get little pulses of things since COVID. But you?
Like that.
And like yesterday, I had to go out because we'd had this booked for ages, because for my mum's Mother's Day. We took her out because my mum's really funny. She hates going out on Mother's Day. She goes, I mean, you're just sitting there with all these other mothers. She said, I don't like it at all. It's horrible. She's so funny.
It's a bit like people not liking going out on Valentine's Day,
Yes,
isn't it?
that's her equivalent. She hates being taken out on Mother's Day. So we've had this restaurant booked for ages, and it was her favourite restaurant. So I just sort of stayed in bed in the morning and had some homeopathic remedies. I had all my like ginger teas and everything, did a bit of meditation, a bit of yoga, and felt all right enough to go out. But I didn't feel great. And then when I got back, I had a 3-hour kip. It's honestly, it's like COVID, it's so knackering. And then
Very strange.
I feel much better today. So thank you so much. Thanks everybody. Your messages you're just so lovely. You're just
So you may well have discovered, because of that, we didn't have a No Name Sunday show this weekend.
Yeah.
So we plopped an old one on the main channel, just 'cause sometimes they're hard to find. How is everyone? Grania, I noticed that you've got COVID, you poor thing. I mean, it's, I think...
Well, what I would say though is, with the COVID being much milder now, if you're not immune compromised...
I don't think it necessarily is for a lot of people.
No, you still feel shit and it's horrible, but it is brilliant for your immunity. If you have it, and that's, though they were resisting that all the way along. I was listening to John Campbell last night.
Berry's got it.
Yeah.
Epsington.
It just take the joy in it that it's really horrible and you do feel shit, but it will give you this extra special immunity if you get it, so that if you get it again, it's not so bad.
So that doesn't change the fact that if you've got it for the first time, it's every bit and way as bad as it has been. So I mean, the reason I'm saying that is I think we're all in this kind of idyllic possible after phase of thinking, oh, all right, now COVID fully is the flu, and it isn't for a lot of people. And I was reading a report yesterday about the flu where someone was saying the flu is no easy thing.
This is what I was going to say. I think it is like the flu.
No, but they were saying, man flu is not flu.
Yeah.
What we describe as flu is often not flu.
Exactly. This is flu. This is like real flu.
Yeah, but this is flu writ large. So if flu puts you in bed, then COVID is it whacks you. It whacks you. And like Nadia said earlier, I'm still struggling with little spurts of exhaustion and everything from it. So
Kiki said to me yesterday, she goes, Mum, I never told you how bad I felt with it. I didn't want to. I was like, well, I wish I had. She goes, my eyes were just bursting and I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, that's child speak, but she felt really, it's probably the illest she's ever been. But I'm just trying to say on a positive note, having watched the John Campbell yesterday, this immunity now that you get is proven. Very deep study from Denmark, and it's excellent study. And as usual, he breaks it all down because who's going to be bothered to read these studies? But
well done. Emma Staple hasn't had it yet. Well done. You've dodged that bullet. And Leo, you say you're having terrible dreams. Is that related to COVID, or are you just having terrible dreams?
Michelle's in bed with it. Yeah.
Which Michelle?
Michelle just there.
Oh, Michelle. Oh, sorry, I think you meant Michelle as well. Sorry, Michelle. It's just as terrible that you are too. Getting face migraines with it. Horrid. Elaine upright.
Horrible.
A face migraine. What?
It's like a neuralgia, isn't it? It's when
What's
the nerves.
neuralgia?
It's like when all the nerves get painful.
Oh God, I've never had this in my life.
I have. I've had that before. It's
I mean, I get a head pain, but I've never had a face.
Do you know
pain.
when I had it in my head, it was so bad. I had a tea towel wrapped and tied as hard as it could be around my head, and then I had a wooden spoon stuck into the...
Oh, tightened.
And like my family would have to tighten it.
Good old
like
medieval torture.
And I remember ringing my homeopath and explaining this. She said straight away, oh, the remedy is such and such. But gave me a remedy for it, and my God, it lifted in about 10 minutes. So what about that remedy the other day when you had that terrible headache?
What, the hammer? Yeah, she took a hammer to my head. Jane Taylor says, I've had COVID for the second time. Someone else just said, it's just as bad a second time. Yeah, we must avoid getting into this sort of slightly, oh, you've had it once, you'll be all right.
No, because nothing is the same for everybody.
No, exactly.
But just generally speaking, when you've had any illness, it shouldn't be as bad the next time you have it, just generally.
Yeah. And also on that note, we did talk about this briefly on Friday. You know, the news coming, the mood music out of China is batshit crazy panic. Is all sorts that, and tragically, a plane has just gone down in China as well, with I think 133 people on it. Chinese government very odd in the way that they describe these things. They didn't use the word crash, or the language they used suggested it hadn't happened. It was really strange.
Classic.
But yeah, so you'll hear stories of cities and regions of China going into complete lockdown. But of course, that's because they're trying to go for total ground zero, zero tolerance, which, as we know, is like trying to sort of hold back air.
Sajid Javid was on this morning and he was saying, not only that, but also a very big percentage of the elderly, both in Hong Kong and in China, have refused the vaccine. So they have a big problem with that. But also, like we were saying on Friday, Sajid, which was our theory, but Sajid confirmed our theory today and said you just can't hold back Omicron.
Yeah.
So they're going to be locking people down forever if they're trying to stop Omicron, because it's like the BA, the second variant, they say it's as contagious as measles, which is the most contagious thing in the world.
Nenad Lukic, my friend in Germany. I have it for the first time, COVID, and it sucks. Oh, you poor thing, and happy anniversary again for the weekend. It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant. Melanie Williams, because there are different strains of COVID, immunity from one strain doesn't necessarily mean an effective immunity against others. No, you're absolutely right. Wow, God, what was that?
Well, except John Campbell said yesterday, because he was getting a lot of questions about, the new variant from the Omicron, BA1 and 2. He said, yes, you can get it again. We've had the first Omicron, we could get the second Omicron. But he said it's very, very, very unlikely, but you can get it. Which is good to know. It's not going to whip all around everybody again that's had it.
Minky Moo, I'm a bit concerned that a lot of people are saying their second or third COVID infection is incrementally worse.
Really?
Time for a rhyme, personalised poetry, Kirsty Wilson. How are you? Nadia and Mark, wonderful and true. Nobody cares as much as you. I have so much to deal with in life today, but you cheer me up in every way. Keep on doing what you do. Positivity, love to you too.
And love your little poems.
Too.
We love your little poems. Thank you.
Sending you a big hug. James Flanagan, how are you, James? Gobshite. I haven't had it yet. Maybe it couldn't put up with me.
Yeah, but you might have had it and not known you'd had it. That's the bloody thing.
And let's not forget, a lot of people, the vast majority of people, get it without knowing they've got it.
Maddie's had it 3 times.
Do you remember at one point we said this is a bizarre kind of illness? It's an illness that tells you haven't got it. Or it's an illness that doesn't present.
Do you know what? When you think about, we used to talk about it all the time.
All
and now
the time.
I'm going, it seems weird talking about it.
So much that she's left.
I mean, look at Toffee lying in the sun.
Oh, I know. I love it when they do that.
Oh, no,
basking. Basking in the
so.
sun. Basking. Now, who heard Boris? Before we get into the defence of this, who heard Boris? It sounded like, and it felt like, and I think one has to say, he put it incorrectly. The idea that Ukraine could in any way be compared to Brexit. There's lots of clarifications coming from every single Conservative person on the planet.
Didn't mean that he meant this.
Which, for me, suggests that they're all acknowledging that the way he said it was clumsy and therefore could have been interpreted in the way that everyone's interpreted it. They wouldn't be so vociferously denying it if there wasn't really, justification and seeing it as a comparison. Linda Blythe, outrageous Boris. Yeah,
a lovely old guy rang up on LBC yesterday. I have a lot of friends in Germany. I used to live in Germany. Did you hear him, this guy?
No.
And I'm not going into the whys and wherefores of Boris. I mean, how many times do we hold our head in our hands when Boris says almost anything? But he's been very, very offensive to the Europeans, and the Germans said, why does he say these things? He's comparing us to Putin.
Well, his exact line,
It's really offensive.
Yeah, and
it's a fuck-up line.
His exact line was where he claimed it's the instinct of the people of this country, like the people of Ukraine, to choose freedom. Now, what he should have just said was it's the instinct of people in this country through Brexit to have chosen freedom, because then you're just talking specifically about Brexit.
Yeah, but what he's doing is he's piggybacking the bravery of the Ukrainian people,
Absolutely.
and in some way applying it to himself. Now, there's terribly one of those sort of ex-conservatives. I didn't know who he was. And he said, listen, every professional politician knows exactly what this is about. This is about the next election. You did it completely on purpose, and it's what you do. You bring round the only positive thing about yourself, and you
place it centre stage.
You cloak it in more positivity, and he's begun his campaign for the next election.
Yeah.
Never mind that when Reece Gobshite, what's his name? Jacob Reece Gobshite was
Jacob Rees-Bogg
was given this bizarre job, which was, oh, look at the little bird in the birdhouse.
Oh.
What's his job with Brexit? It's got a funny title.
Oh, I don't know.
It's such a non-job.
He was like the gatekeeper, wasn't he? Or something?
No, saying what was been brilliant about Brexit, basically.
The court jester.
The day after he was given the job, he advertised in the Sun for people to say how Brexit has benefited them. Because he hasn't actually got a list of a million things that have been better since Brexit.
So people have come out, including Anne Widdecombe, has said that was a bit of a Boris to do that yesterday. See, this is where you can't have your cake and eat it.
A bit of a Boris. Oh, our little Boris.
Yeah, affectionately, misbehaving
Boris.
in the back of class. You can't say
It's
he's
dangerous.
done a bit of a Boris and then claim he didn't mean it as a bit of a... But do you know what I mean? There's a complete contradiction. You can't say that's not what he said, but actually we need to clarify. But she goes on to say the only thing that was silly was that it was perfectly predictable that the press would take that as a straight comparison. He presented the fucking comparison.
As a straight comparison.
Not us. Don't blame us.
And as James O'Brien says, we shouldn't call him Boris. We should call him the Prime Minister, because Boris is like... I do it as well. Oh, it's a bit jolly. He's a bit... Oh, here we go. He's being a bit of a Boris. You know, it was offensive. It was really offensive.
Yeah.
There was a Ukrainian government minister in the room when he said it as well.
Well, and also but also a lot of people in Europe, we talk about how to win friends and influence people. You know, Brexit has happened. Don't need to cry over spilt milk. Don't need to rub it in either. But in an analogy like that, you're clearly presenting Europe in the aggressor place of Russia. So to draw any equivalence says so much.
We were in Europe of our own volition.
You can't pretend.
We weren't forced.
But also,
we weren't piled into trucks and taken against our will to be part of the European community.
But also, geographically, we're in Europe. I don't understand it. You can't pretend that you're not neighbours. It's like saying...
And why would you want to insult all your neighbours at a time like this?
It's like that equivalent is, it's like being neighbours, but
friends.
It's like being neighbours, but insisting you don't live on the same street.
I mean, there's that big meeting soon, isn't it? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
With all the European leaders, and of course he's not invited. Yeah. And it's like that's dangerous for us. We need to be in on all the meetings.
Okay, can everyone use their best adjective?
God, he's going to get voted
their best
in
adjective for Boris. I mean, that said, he has been very active and involved in the whole. I mean, there's talk of him heading to Kiev today or tomorrow or something, to show support and what have you. I'm not entirely critical of him in terms of how he's managed.
I mean,
he
very
adjective
quickly
to describe
stepped up to...
Blonker, Boris.
But, I mean, there's a lot of accolades being given to him because of the swiftness with Swift and all of that. But let's not forget how many weeks he warned the oligarchs of exactly what they were going to do. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take their house, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And in that time, they all, drew their money, very clever lawyers, got their money moved around. So he warned them for ages, Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, we know, it's common knowledge that there's a lot of Russian money in the Tory party.
So here we go. Just a few selections of your words. You'll know who you are if you put them. Nicola Higgins says wank stain, Miss One Tricia dangerous, Dixon Summit buffoon, Sarah Sutton bellend. Boris is about as welcome as a fart in a spacesuit. Tracy, stop. That is an image to conjure, or a scent to sniff. MT2 narcissist.
Tuppenny Trump, says Leslie Turner. I like that.
Oh, Tuppenny Trump is pandering, yeah.
Is anyone listening to Nick Abbott at the moment? He's very funny.
Dawny Harvey, Coco the Clown.
Julie Connell, homeopathic remedies for allergies. Yes, they can work extremely well, but I couldn't possibly tell you what. You have to see a proper homeopath who is on the Royal Homeopathic Society's register. Like anything, you know, you make sure you get somebody that's properly qualified. The Royal Homeopathic Hospital, do you hear that?
That used to be
Because royalty uses.
Remember when we used to walk
homeopathy?
when I used to walk to work in Bristol, and there was the Royal Homeopathic Hospital there.
Yeah.
Was that
There's two.
is that it?
No, there's two.
It was based there. Yeah. Anyway, so Tiny Winky, George Carrington, cheeky. So that's Boris. Obviously, you know, Ukraine is still being bombed to bits. I worry that I worry that these hypersonic bombs, and I worry that Putin is like dangling a potential carrot that's never going to get there of negotiations. And
there was a military man on this morning though, and he was saying, you know, I genuinely don't think that they are purposefully bombing schools and theatres. He said they are just useless.
Yeah.
He said they are a useless army. He said this reeks of missiles just going in the wrong bloody direction. And he also said that, what was the other thing? No, you know what the thing that's really, I think that's been
Mariupol
really...
is the
hell on
epicenter,
earth, and there's nobody there helping them.
Yeah.
And the really horrendous development over the weekend was the revelation that people are being put into trucks,
taken off,
and taken back to Russia.
Yeah.
And this morning I heard put into work camps.
Yeah, for free. I mean, it's not like they're taking all their sort of documentation and passports and making them Russian citizens. I mean,
this is the mayor of Mariupol that said that.
Concerning.
But since then, there's a lot of people that have said it. I think they're still waiting for what would you call it? Well, not clarification. What is it that news channels
they need it to be ratified, don't they?
Ratified, that's the word. But at the moment, that is what is coming out of Mariupol. Now, oh my God, again, echoes of World War II, and yet we are just all sitting here going, could that really be happening? Could that really be happening?
Yeah. Anthony Cotton, do you think with everything happening in Ukraine, is this the beginning of the end of Putin? You know what? For the first time, I genuinely think it is. I saw the first report today of the person who... Now, this isn't necessarily a good thing, I hasten to add, because the person who's right alongside him is the guy who's head of what was formerly the KGB. I think it's the FSP or the FPS or something like that now. And apparently he's as evil and as malevolent as Putin, if not a little bit more. So we've got to be careful what we wish for here. But I do genuinely think that Putin could be on the way out.
But we also have to remember what else is going on around the rest of the world. I mean, we got a taxi back yesterday after taking my mum, and we were all chatting about Russia. And oh my God, the driver, it was an Uber driver, he just absolutely broke our heart. He just started talking, he said, you know, Russia, he goes, you talk about Putin, you talk about... He said, how can the Western world just mark him as pure evil when their fingers are in so many things? And we must keep remembering this. And he really passionately wanted to tell us about the Congo, because he said 8 million people have been murdered in the Congo. He said 3 years ago, they got 10,000 Congolese children in their school uniforms to walk from the Congolese embassy to the British embassy. He said it wasn't even reported. And it really, I said to my sister afterwards, we have to be really careful where we just talk about this stuff, because do you know what? That driver was crying. He'd lost all 3 of his brothers had been murdered. He'd lost his mum, and it had triggered him in a way, because we were talking about the hell of Putin and what he's doing to Ukraine. And actually, he said, we've been for so long trying to get the world to see what's happening for us.
Yeah, I mean...
And it is everywhere you look out. And I said to him, I'm really, really sorry, but they have made the distinction. And because this is Europe, and because it's close by, and because they're white, people, there is a different energy behind it. And it just must be so triggering for people.
Oh, it's just horrendous.
Just
I mean,
awful.
we were saying right at the beginning, imagine how difficult it is for people at Calais. And when I say Calais, I mean, use that as a metaphor for all places that, refugees are stopped, processed, or prevented from entering. And then you see loads and loads of sort of European-looking white people come across the border. I mean...
Well, that's why I said that. That's why I think they couldn't do the processing in Calais, because they would have had to be saying, because there's refugees, how many of them been living in plastic sheets for how long? And we have to go, oh no, sorry, no, you're not the right refugee. It's coming, it's So I'm not going to talk about it anymore on trains or buses or anything, because you don't know what horrors you might bring up for people.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to remember there are lots of atrocities going on around the world, and you know, I mean, you can't.
Yemen.
You know,
Yemen.
it's as much the press's fault as anyone else's, because we respond to what the press plops in front of us, and you know they just don't present other stories and it is about visibility, and it is about Europeanness, and it is about the fact that they look like the majority of us in this country, I mean, and in Western countries. So, you know, that doesn't minimise what's going on at all. And I've always said, though, that I do think there is a slightly different aspect to this, in that we are dealing with a man who has, at certain points in this, threatened nuclear war. And, you know, that does have a different hue to anything else. But not to the people who are dying in other parts of the world. So obviously we know, all I'm saying is Ukraine is moving along in a non-progressive way, and certain areas of Ukraine are under a ludicrous assault at a point that negotiations are happening, which is just...
But again, you know,
negotiations.
All the chatter is, isn't it, when you hear to these military people, is that he's just stalling with these chats. These chats are nothing. And, you know, there is more of the argument coming up now. You know, the harder the Ukrainians fight, the more aggressive he will become. So...
Yeah, we've said that, haven't we?
Yeah,
the more resistance that they show, the more severely they're going to be punished.
They are tough people, aren't they, though? God almighty.
Now, one other headline that we looked at today was smacking children in Wales has become illegal. How do you feel about that, guys? Smacking children. Should we, as parents, be allowed... Is that removing one of our rights as a parent? Should we be free adults to make our own decisions about how to sort of, you know,
I'm very
punish our children?
I think you know me on this. I'm very anti-smacking.
Yeah.
Very, very, very. I don't like to see anyone smacked.
Claire Cummins says it's been illegal in Ireland for years.
I don't like to see a bigger, scarier person legally able to smack a smaller, scared person. For me, it's just abuse.
Well, you've always said, I think the strongest thing you've said is we get charged if we hit another human, adult. But for some reason, it's all right to hit a child.
I mean, we were hit as children. We had classic 70s childhood, and my mum used to hit us. Yeah. And I remember saying to myself, I will never do this with my children because it just makes me hate my mum. Yeah. So if my mum hit me, and she didn't do it, it wasn't like, don't get me wrong, I wasn't battered, I wasn't like anything, wasn't tortured, but I used to get a smack, you know, what I call a 70s smack. And it never worked. It just caused resentment. And so my mum would say, well, you know, you can't come down to say sorry. I didn't learn a good sorry. In fact, I hated it. Like, I've never said to the kids, well, you've got to say sorry, because I don't believe that opens the heart. Like, to me, a sorry is with a really open heart. Not a sorry to just get me through the next stage. I really hate it. Like, if somebody gives me a sorry like that, I just say, please don't, because I hate it. Because our sorries would have to be to the next stage. You're allowed to come out of your room, and it just never felt good.
No. Julia Cornell, smacking sounds very powerful. Would it be made illegal if called tapping?
Well, the reason there is no grey area now is because they said it would be too difficult to police. So that's why there is absolutely no, it's zero tolerance. Smack, slap, tap, whatever it is, you're not allowed to do.
When I was at school, the headmaster used to get his knuckles and rub them against your head really hard.
Yeah.
Really
we used to get proper blackboard thrown. Well, my headmaster had a row of canes outside his... And
he'd decide on what size.
So you would, if you were late, you would stand under the clock, and then however minutes late you were, you'd get hit with a cane. And I think I can't even believe that was allowed. It's so abusive. It's so abusive. But yeah. What do you guys think? I just can't believe.
A lot of people are sharing in how Nicola Higgins got the leather belt. Creatorholic was the slipper at school. Emma, you said that you were hit on the bare bottom with a spoon. Jill Carrington, my mum hit me too, just the odd smack. I remember that more than any cuddling I received. Anne Henderson, smacking children is assault, violence proves violence. I suppose there's also the other category of, you know, you can have all sorts of assaulting and abuse verbally, can't you? I mean, we've all seen parents who are pulling their kids around. Is that included if you're pulling your child around and you're trying to sort of...
Do you remember that poor little girl Star, that horrible abuse case that we heard of recently. And she was seen, there was one particular day where she was really, really crying and getting pulled along the street.
Hi, Fiona.
And she was actually getting pulled along the street because she had a broken leg.
Oh my God.
Now, that, if you saw that now, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, in Wales, like just dragging them along, I believe that you could call the police. Now, there's lots of people that aren't happy about this in Wales, and it's saying, you know, it's sort of, it's,
What's
you know,
the
creating that Stasi sort of environment
Control.
again, getting neighbours to tell on neighbours.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying to report it if you see it.
But I go back to it again. If you're standing outside and you see somebody just hitting an adult, why would we think that was weird to report that? Or my neighbour's hitting his wife, and we wouldn't think anything of me telling the police. So why would we think badly? It's not Stasi. It's about protecting other people. Stasi was when we were told, tell people if you see anyone in their garden, if you see an old lady in her garden having a cup of tea with one of her friends in pandemic. That was Stasi. This is about, it takes a village, it takes a community to look after people.
Maybe all the busybodies that online point out really pointless things could get busy about whether people are smacking their children.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, pay your attention to something with a point. Yeah, I mean, you know, in England we don't have that. In Scotland it's already illegal. In Wales they're making it illegal. The English government have got annoyed because they feel that we should have control over this as parents ourselves. I disagree. I agree with the idea
Tories.
that if you it never did me any harm, smacked sense into me. Smacked sense into me round
Sweden.
absolutely round the head.
Sweden actually passed this law in 1979, and time again, they have the happiest children. And we time and time again have the unhappiest children in Europe. So can you believe they did it in 1979? I mean, how behind the times are we?
Elaine Flew, caught myself about to smack my 4-year-old over 30 years ago and suddenly realised my size compared to her and never smacked her again.
Well, I think that was a very poignant remark. I can't remember who said it now, that my mum hit me a few times and I remember it more than I remember the cuddles.
Yeah.
It's like, as an adult, if somebody hit you, like you, okay, that's you, you're daddy and you've hit a child, you're my husband and you hit me, right? I'm never going to forget that.
No.
That's going to colour everything in our relationship.
Yeah.
Why do
Would
we
it
not
not with a
apply that to our children?
Yeah, I agree.
To be violent to your children. If you were to just go to me now angrily or shove me or just slap me, I mean, obviously we're always doing it as a joke, but if you would do that, it would fundamentally change how I thought about you, and I would be vaguely traumatised by that.
Of course.
And yet some people hit their children every single day.
Yeah. Indian moms with slippers, says Faizan Khan, are the most deadliest weapons. I want to just quickly talk about this story, which is the Leah Thomas. She won a sort of inter-college swimming competition. She's a transgender woman.
They're very important, these inter-college.
Yeah.
I mean, they are as...
Well, they're like regional, but we have them on all sports here. You know, you move through them, you progress, and you get to national levels.
Yeah, they're extremely important. Don't just think, oh, it's a college thing. It's because it's the knock-on effect for the Olympics and everything.
And we just wanted to know, now, when she won this, she stood on the winner's podium with her trophy in top place, and the 3 other swimmers who didn't get top sort of demonstrated a protest by grouping together as 3. We just wanted to know what your thoughts on this were, because, you know, does it seem fair that a transgender woman with some of the remaining, I suppose you could describe, benefits sporting-wise of a formerly male body should be competing against women, you know, women,
and with that, you're talking about
birth.
muscle mass, you're talking about 6'3". I don't know whether that's a bonus or not as a swimmer to be tall, but
you
anyway.
can reach. I mean, any swimmer is
Yeah,
tall,
you've got longer arms, haven't you?
So what do you think of this? Now, the question is, what could there be as a potential solution? I think there's a kind of relatively obvious solution, which is you have a 3rd category.
Which is what they were suggesting this morning. Was it the man from the NCCA?
Yeah.
So did you say that she was 554th?
Yeah, as a man, she was 554th swimming, and obviously in the similar tournaments, and now she's first. you know, there's been a lot of debate about this. About there was a particular. Do you remember there was a particular athlete who wasn't trans, but because they had such a high level of testosterone, you know, I mean, I suppose there are all sorts of kind of, you know, unusual exceptions to this. Clodagh Egan, what did you say? If she is now completely female, it's okay. Women can be very tall. If she hasn't had the operation to change, not okay. I mean, Martina Navratilova says that because there's no solution to this at the moment, that they should say in this situation, she should have swum in a separate lane, and that there should be an asterisk that says she won.
Is this what Martina
Navratilova says? And it should be a sort of asterisked win. So perhaps you have more than one winner, and so you adjust the qualification.
Oh, right.
That might be one way of doing it. Or you have a section that's entirely for trans competitors.
Apparently, Caitlyn Jenner condemned the win too. There's been some really...
Condemn the win or condemn the protest?
No, condemned the win.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, right. Caitlyn Jenner condemned it.
There's been... So a number of athletes have written written into the NCA... You've got it there, Mark. Is it the NCCA?
Yeah.
No, I know. I'm not going to read the whole thing out. But I'm just looking for the name of the athlete.
NCA. Oh.
No, the name of the athlete. Rekha Georgi, and she is very complimentary to Leah, and says, you know, she's worked hard, she's done the best that she can to get to be the best that she can, and I have nothing against her. But she said, I'm writing to the NCAA and hoping that you will open your eyes and change the rules in the future. It doesn't promote our sport in a good way, and I think it's disrespectful against the biologically female swimmers who are competing. And, you know, the thing is, what I suppose the worry is that there will be a whole group of swimmers that will just cease to compete because they think there's no way that we can win.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. Elsa Pop, you say you have nothing against trans whatsoever, but that's not fair on the other athletes. I think it's really important that, you know, a cause for concern with something like this, from a sporting perspective, isn't about being anti-trans. It's about a solution needs to be found, so there's some kind of an equal playing field for everyone, rather than an overt equal playing field for one way and not for, you know, the huge number of women who are themselves. Because, you know, the top 16 athletes in these college swimming competitions qualify and get through to the next superior round, and of course there's an athlete who's at 17 now who's looking at it and kind of going, well, hang on a minute, this doesn't work. And especially if you think that Leah, she was 554th, and no one said, I mean, I've seen some people suggesting that you know, she transed in order to do better at her sport. Which I think is patently ridiculous, but I do think a solution needs to be found. Definitely a third category, says Andrea Jenner, is needed for fairness.
Well, that's what the chap from the NCCA was suggesting today, wasn't he, on Nick Ferrari? I think he was from the NCCA. But it was so frustrating because Nick Ferrari, we were like, didn't ask the question, how would you categorise? Because he said it would be an open category for all. But that seems... What if a trans person says that they want to be in where that, would you say no, that you can't? Because he said we wouldn't make it difficult for anyone and nobody would have
It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Melanie Williams, I think there might be some nuance in trans athletes who transitioned before puberty participating, but that's not the majority of trans people. Exactly. So it is complex. It is complex.
It's really I really feel for everyone in this. It was incredibly difficult situation.
And I felt really bad for Leah as well, because, you know, the image of the other sports people standing to the side, and potentially the bullying and hate that she'll probably get online. You know, again, it shouldn't be a green light to punish Leah.
No.
She's partaken in an event that she's freely allowed to. But it's whether in future, you know, there should be some compensation made for that fact in some way. Running both ways. So that in a sense, Leah's victory is more meaningful against people who've potentially come through a similar background. I just wanted to quickly share this because I think it's really nice. David Beckham has handed his Instagram account to a Ukrainian doctor. He has something like 77 million or 71 million followers on Instagram, so that she can.
What a cool thing to do.
I think that's a really curiously
Using
interesting
social
thing.
media for good.
And handing over, a space and a medium to be able to reach so many people. It's a little bit like anonymous hacking Russian TV. It allows her to gain to get the facts out to just 71
because
million
David
people.
Beckham is just known in every corner. In fact, years ago when I had to go on this kidnapping awareness course, and we got as far as, I'll have to tell the whole story of
That's
this
a
one day
bizarre
because it's
opening
such
to a sentence.
like we had to be kidnapped. They had
Yeah.
to teach us what to do when you're kidnapped because I was going to film in Sierra Leone, and they went right through. If you've been kept for a number of weeks and you've built a relationship with the kidnappers and, but then it turns sour and you get to the last sort of, that was it. Try and talk about football, talk about David Beckham. I was like, are you kidding? This was a proper kidnap.
Did you?
And then they said, even when you're taken to the edge and you might be just about to be killed,
Football.
bring them back to David Beckham.
But that reminds me of that.
No matter where you are in the world.
That reminds me of that story where, it's very hard now to find an island or a community that hasn't been found or identified before. But not that many years ago, about 20 years ago, this island and this tribe were discovered, and they hadn't had any connection with humanity. Yet they went round the back of one of their huts and it says Man United. How did that
There you
happen?
go. That's what it's
How did that
incredible,
happen?
isn't it?
Yeah, so we were going to talk about royal trips, but we've run out of time. I just thought, William and Kate causing distress in some capacity, and then you wonder, what is the point of these royal trips? I don't really understand.
Well,
that.
they're trying to lock
Re-represent
everything down before
The Queen.
we lose the Queen.
Right. Guys, have a lovely, lovely day.
I'm going to be doing a members live. It will just be me at 5 o'clock today in the members area with me. 5 o'clock. We'll be doing cards. We'll be having a chat because we missed it last week. So I'll be doing it tonight.
All right, lovelies.